Hello, everybody. I had the privilege, the opportunity to sit down today with one of my fellow Daily Wire creatures, Matt Walsh. And you should know Matt, I suspect. And if you don't, well, then you could. He was the force behind two of the most successful documentaries in the last few decades. What is a Woman? That's a question he actually answers. And Am I Racist? Two deep and soul-searching questions, apparently. I don't know. Are those the cardinal questions of the last 10 years? Maybe they were. Anyways, Matt has a remarkable facility to put his finger on central issues in the culture war, to lay them out, to inquire into them, and to show their appalling underbelly. And so we talked about that. We talked about how he managed that. We talked about his role as a comedian, a straight-faced, Buster Keaton-like, monotone-speaking, troublemaking comedian, a social critic, a writer, a director, now an actor in these documentaries, playing a role, playing a character, what that was like, what he learned, his ambitions for the future. We talked about the political moment and what the implications are of the Trump victory for conservative commentary of the sort that Matt particularly specializes in and that I delve into from time to time. And we touched on some more topical issues in the last week. Matt has been involved in a rather contentious war of words with a number of people online, including James Lindsay, who I did a podcast with just a week or so ago on the issue of the woke right. And so we delved into the controversies that are erupting on the conservative side of the spectrum, and that's the podcast. So join us for an update into Matt Walsh's life and another glimpse into the culture war and a bit of a slice of what's currently controversial. Hey, Matt, we were supposed to meet in person today. What the hell happened?
Yeah, we were. Sorry about that. This is flying American. My flight got delayed by 5 hours with no explanation, and so now I'm still here. So that's the world of flying these days.
Typical uppity customer wanting explanations and everything.
Yeah, and they're not very forthcoming with them. So
no, they certainly aren't. Yeah. No, they certainly aren't. And I think the situation is even worse in Canada. I presume a 50% delay rate at the moment. And the U.S. seems better, but it's still hit and miss.
Yeah, it's really bad. I was just on a flight last week, and we lost cabin pressure, and we had to divert and do an emergency landing. And every time I try to get on a plane now, this is what it's like. It's the airline.
Yeah, well, Matt, who needs merit?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's something we could talk about too. You know, there are actually technical definitions of merit, by the way, that psychologists were bound to consider when they were doing such things as generating practices for hiring. And even though those are instantiated in the law, in many ways they've been thrown aside. So anyways, before we get into any of that, why don't you tell me what you're up to? And I want to talk to you a little bit about the Daily Wire too, because since we're both part of it, because I'm struggling in a sense with trying to figure out exactly what the proper role is of our style of communication on the political side, given the new political reality in the United States. So tell me about what you're up to first, though. What's going on with you?
Yeah, we have, of course, aside from the daily show that I do every day, we've got several projects that are in very early stages right now, at least 3, and I'm really excited about them. The nature of the kind of projects we do means that I can't talk about them at all. So there's always a lot of secrecy that goes into it, which I understand is frustrating for the audience, especially I start missing shows here and there because I'm out filming something. But at this point, I think I can say the audience also knows that it'll be worth it in the end. That if I say I'm working on a secret project, I will deliver at some point in the future, and it'll be worth it. So we're working on that again, and yeah, I'm once you get into it and once you start doing, at least for me anyway, having done podcasting for years, and then I did the first movie, What is a Woman, and then Am I Racist came out last year. But once I experienced that, what it's like to do a piece of long form, entertainment content that you work on for months and months and months, put a lot of time into it. You put it out into the world, and it makes an impact. People watch it, and it makes an impact that lasts longer than 30 seconds, which is usually how long, like a podcast lasts. Once you experience that, you want to keep doing it. You can't let it go. So there's plenty more to come. I wish I could say more about it, but that's it for now.
We're dealing with a pattern of misbehaviors with our son.
Our 13-year-old throws tantrums.
Our son turned to some substance abuse.
Rules consistently applied with minimal force and plenty of patience.
Yeah, well, let's delve into the previous projects a bit. So you already named them, What is a Woman and Am I Racist? I thought those were both spectacularly well-timed and also pitched at exactly the right public level. You have a real knack for taking a topic that is, in a sense, intellectual and philosophical at its core, but investigating that in a way that makes it sufficiently accessible to people so that you can ensure a very wide audience and commercial success and also communicate something. So why don't you bring everybody up to date with regard to What is a Woman and Am I Racist? What level of success, what level of reach did those projects bring? And what opportunities has that opened up for you on the documentary and film horizon?
I mean, we were blessed in both cases that they were extremely successful. I mean, it's sometimes it's hard to put it into perspective when you're talking about success for a piece of content that's on the platform behind a paywall versus in theaters. And What is a Woman was only on the platform and we never released it in theaters. It was a huge, massive hit for us. And then at the time, the biggest hit the Daily Wire had ever had, when you look at just number of views and subscribers and everything else. And then Am I Racist comes out, we decide to pursue the theatrical release with that. And there was always the question of how is that going to affect. We wanted to put it in theaters. We wanted to reach a wide audience. We want to kind of play in that. We want to be on that playing field. If you really want to engage with the culture, you have to go where the culture is happening. And it is still happening in movie theaters also. So we wanted to do that. We weren't sure how that would impact the success on the platform. Would everybody go see it in theaters and they're not interested in watching the platform? We weren't sure. It was worth trying. And what we found is that for a documentary, it was massively successful in theaters. It was the number one documentary box office wise of this decade. It's top 35, top 30 for documentaries in the box office all time. And then on the platform, it became the new biggest hit the Daily Wire had ever had, even surpassing What is a Woman. And what we found is that actually there's putting in theaters, you access a large audience. It also is its own kind of marketing engine. Now more people know about it, and they're going to want to go find it. So it's been incredible, and I think the main opportunity it opens up for me anyway is doing another one. And, once you kind of have to prove yourself, especially for us. And I know going into this, I never made a movie before What is a Woman. You got to prove yourself. You got to prove you can do it. Then you got to keep proving yourself. And if you have success with one film, then that kind of buys you the next one. And so we're so far so good, and so we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. I mean, obviously the first one is by far the most difficult, like the first customer that you have in a new business or your first book sale, anything unlikely, but it's very unlikely that a film ever gets made. And then it's within the category of films that get made, it's very unlikely that they'll be successful. And I would say that's particularly true for documentary releases theatrically. And it's also really good to hear that, and I think this is a lesson too, in a way, that it's not a zero-sum game, right? You can, because the potential market is so huge, the fact that you did release in theaters, as you said, had a boosting effect in the other avenues that you wanted to walk down effectively, right? To bring subscribers, for example, to the Daily Wire and viewers. And so your theatrical release was nothing but additional icing on the cake, hey? Yeah,
that's what it was. And you're right, that's once you get into trying to make a movie, you start to appreciate what I didn't appreciate before, which is that this is so incredibly hard to do. And there are so many ways it can go wrong because
Yeah.
unlike any other art form that you can think of, or unlike most other art forms, it involves so many people. And and we're doing documentaries. So with documentaries, it's a much smaller team, but it's still a large team. We have our director, producers, we have, the camera crew. We have, you've got your people that are on development. Then there's the production side and the editing side, and then the distributors, and then people marketing, because like, how are you going to get people to even watch it? They have to know that it exists. And so you've got all these different teams. And if anything goes wrong along that chain, if anyone screws up, then it could derail the entire thing. And that's how you end up. So I started to appreciate, okay, well, how can you make a movie that's good but doesn't do well? Well, that's actually very easy to do, especially if you screw up on the marketing end, that can happen, or the distribution end. What, to me, the bigger mystery that I always wondered is, how do bad movies exist? Like, how did no one notice before this thing came out how bad it was? And I started to understand that too. Now, fortunately, I think both of our movies are really good. But when you're in the process of making it, you understand that, yeah, I could see how this could, it feels good to me right now. It feels like we're making a good movie, but it's gotta go through so many hands before it finally makes it out into the world. And if they don't steward it the right way, then we could end up with a bad movie that felt good at the time. And so I have developed an appreciation for that. And I'm a little bit more forgiving now also of, only a little bit, but a little bit more forgiving of movies that I watch that don't quite nail it, because I can see how that might happen, even with all the best intentions.
Well, it's also hard, I think, to bring the proper critical eye, or have the proper critical eye brought to your work, say by your friends. Like, I find that as soon as I'm personally involved with someone, maybe I've solved this in relation to my own work, but as soon as I'm personally involved with someone, if they send me something to evaluate, I find it quite difficult to evaluate it as soon as that personal connection is there, right? Because you lose that necessary distance. So, look, you did 2 movies in a row that did well, and they were similar in quality and format, I would say. Like, they were markedly of the same approach. What role did you play in constructing and supervising the editing, and in overseeing the people who were involved to make sure that it stayed on track? Because as you intimated, you don't need very many weak links in the chain before you've got quite the catastrophe on your hands.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm very involved in all my projects. Part of that is the way I feel about it is I'm on camera. I have to own this thing. If it fails, if it's bad, it's going to, primarily the embarrassment's going to go to me. So if it is going to fail, then I want to actually know that it was my fault. But to be embarrassed by something being bad, that where I don't want to look at it and say, well, that wasn't even my fault, because that makes me feel helpless. I want to be able to know that I have ownership of this thing. So I'm very involved every step of the way on the production end of things. Now, we do also have a director, Justin Folk, who directed the last 2 films, who's an excellent, incredibly talented director. So I can kind of defer to him. So he's actually the one running all of this. And I don't have to take a real kind of management role, which is good, because that's not my strong suit at all. But on the creative end of things, I like to be very, very involved the whole way. And you're also right about, I think this is one of the hazards of not just movies, but doing anything creatively, is just getting anyone around you who will be honest with you and give you real feedback. That becomes a real problem in a creative world. Now, I have one major advantage, which is I do have the person who's the very closest to me on earth, who's my wife, will actually be brutally honest, which I've realized is like a major. It's like an ace up my sleeve. It's a major.
Oh, that's for sure.
Weapon.
Well, that's a whole additional brain, Matt.
Right. Exactly. Which also makes me. It makes me so with both movies. I didn't show them to her until they were very far along, because I was terrified to show them to her, because I knew that she'd be honest, and if she didn't like it, I didn't know how I would handle that. Just because it's devastating to put that much effort and heart into something, and then the person closest to you doesn't like it. But in both cases, she watched it and she loved both of them. And once I knew that, I felt fine. I had a lot of confidence going into the premiere and everything.